Hey y'all, it's Pat Jones with another TurfZoom brought to you by the nice folks at the Aquatrolls Company. Today, we're all going to get to know John Petrovsky from the United States Golf Association Green Section. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, Pat. I want to thank you for having me on. I've admired your work for a long time, and it's a real treat to get to talk to you today.
Well, we'll beat that out of you by the end of this. So I'm delighted. I'm delighted to have you here. We've crossed paths a few times, and
Yeah.
I always wanted to really have a little time to get to know you. And here we are. So where are you sitting today? Where are you hanging out there?
Yeah, Pat. So I am in the USGA's Golf House Pinehurst. This is our new second home we opened a couple of years ago.
Yep.
It houses a lot of championship staff for US Open and Women's Open, some of the Open championship staff, we'll call it, some communications folks and green section. And downstairs is all the equipment testing and standards.
Oh,
So it's all of our ball and club testing for North America. And next door, we have the new World Golf Hall of Fame, which came back from Florida after it was here for a long time in
yeah,
Pinehurst.
right.
It's back home and just had a great Payne Stewart Life and Legacy of Payne Stewart exhibit open next door. So if you're in town, definitely stop by. And if you message me, if you know me and message me, I can give you a tour of the admin, but everyone is welcome next door at the Hall of Fame and the museum.
That's great. I will take you up on that. I love Pinehurst. I love the fact that the USGA has a home there now, and I love the museum. I've always liked that historical stuff, and good for you to be able to be that close to it every day and kind of draw from the glories of the past. That's really cool. So, but you weren't born working for the United States Golf Association. Tell me kind of your background and how you got into the turf business and how you ended up in the crazy world of allied associations.
Right, right. I wasn't born working for the USGA, but I feel like I was born to work for the USGA. So
Well played.
so it's been a real treat to be down here in Pinehurst. Great place to raise a family. But I'm originally from South Jersey, born and raised, about 45 minutes north of Pine Valley. That's always a good geographical marker for folks. The Pine Barrens. So I feel right at home here in the sand hills and pine trees of North Carolina. Feels very much like South Jersey's Pine Barrens. But yeah, if anyone knows where Six Flags Great Adventure is, that was literally in my backyard
Okay.
in Jackson, New Jersey. But yeah, grew up there. I've lived on a 20-acre family farm. Uh, had a great childhood experience. After high school, really didn't know what I wanted to do, but the parents are like, "You all got to go to college. You got to figure something out." So did community college and then went to Rutgers Pharmacy School. Thought I
Yeah.
wanted to be a pharmacist. I had an aunt that encouraged me to do that. And Pat, I gotta say, I worked in a pharmacy in Greenwood Avenue in Trenton, New Jersey, for about a week and realized it was not for me while I was attending. So I left and joined my uncle's construction firm. He had a big construction company and did that for a few years. And it gave me the opportunity to figure some things out. And I did a lot of traveling. So I would work a bunch of time with him and then take a few months off. And I lived in St. Petersburg, Russia. I lived in Limerick, Ireland, and went to South America, Thailand, India, China. And
Wow.
I should back up. My grandfather during high school took the whole family on a trip to Beijing, China. And that really lit the travel bug in me. And boy, I was hooked. So those few years when I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, I did a lot of traveling. And I encourage a lot of folks who are younger and trying to figure things out to do that because boy, it gave me some perspective and experiences that really shaped the future. And I saw some golf courses and got back home and figured out I was in my 24, whatever, 25, and it's time to do something more serious with my life. And kind of randomly to get access to golf, started working on a country club nearby to where I lived, the Toms River Country Club, and
Yeah.
ended up with a great mentor, Ed McSeaman, who was there, I think, almost 40 years before he retired a few years ago. But he got me my pesticide license, got me going in the industry, encouraged me to go to turf school. Ended up at Penn State. I was
Hmm.
there for a hot minute. Turgeon said, "Why don't you finish online so you could work?" Finished online and ended up working for a couple of really good golf courses in New Jersey with some more great mentors, Matita National, and spent a little time at Fords Gate. And then ended up kind of falling into my first superintendent job was at a place called Concordia. It was Ed Alt Design in central New
Oh,
Jersey.
yeah.
Just a little course inside a retirement community, but it got me really interested in the golf maintenance contract world, the service contract world. And next door was a landscape company that was starting up a new contract service firm for golf courses. They were getting it going and they wanted to grow it. So they brought me on board to help with that. And I started working for them and then ended up with Brightview Golf Maintenance
Yeah,
based out of Calabasas, California. And I gotta say, boy, that was a great time with a bunch of great people. Dr. Todd Bonnell was our VP of
right,
agronomy.
right.
Jonathan Moulton was out at Marta's camp. He was like the West Region guy, and Vince Gilmartin in the Northeast. So that was a really great team. Unfortunately, Brightview has kind of merged their golf maintenance into their
Yeah,
bigger.
they were sort of in and out of the business there. Yeah,
Yeah, but anyway, long story short, there I went back to school. Todd Bonnell and a couple of other people from Penn State and within the company encouraged me to try to get a graduate degree if I wanted to advance in my career a little bit. And I ended up going to Auburn University and doing a master's with Scott McElroy, looking at poacure.
okay.
It was in the mid 2000s. That was all the rage in weed science. The kind of throughout my educational experience, it was a little bit non-traditional, kind of going to turf school a little bit later in my 20s and then going to grad school after that. And then now I mentioned before we got started that I recently started a PhD at NC State with
Yeah,
Travis Gannon to kind of continue that. So a little bit unorthodox educational experience, but I think it's kind of benefited me, and it's something I've sought education when I saw the need for it. It wasn't something I did because that's what you do at that time in your life.
right,
So I
right.
feel like that, although it's kind of put me behind schedule a little bit on some things, it's kind of really focused in my education on what I needed to get from it. But
So you had been sort of taking the one traditional turf head path, you know, working at clubs and also working for management companies and groups and things like that. At what point did you think I could go work for the USGA? How did that come about? And what was your thought process about, do I want to give up this world and go to this world?
yeah, well, when I worked for Brightview, we had monthly staff calls, and on one of them, Adam Miller, who was the predecessor to my boss at the USGA, he was on one and he did a presentation about his experience at the US Open and data collection. And I was
Mhm.
just listening to it while I was out uh, fixing an irrigation or something at Four Seasons Golf Club in New Jersey. And like, boy, that's interesting, man. That's a cool job. And then it was about 6 months later, a colleague of mine, John Fitzgerald, who was at Colonial Terrace Golf Club in New Jersey, just emailed me out of blue. And he's like, "Did you see this job posting from the USGA?" It's like, they're literally describing you. I was like, let me check it out. Sounds interesting. So I went on there and looked at it and ended up applying. And that was in right after COVID started. So
Yeah,
I think also, Pat, of course, COVID kind of got everybody reflecting on things. And my wife had just finished her PhD at the University of Pennsylvania, and she was looking to move on in her career. And watching her do her, I had just finished my graduate degree at Auburn with Scott McElroy, who I will not talk about anything. uh, it was on my mind to put that degree to work for me. And it seemed like that was a prerequisite to get in with the USGA. So saw that job posting, put together package, sent it in. And like a lot of people that apply to USGA, you don't hear anything for like 9 months. So it's a little bit unnerving, but fortunately I got the thumbs up about 6 months later and worked in the Far Hills office for about
yeah,
2 years. And then that's still our HQ1. That's the mothership, but uh, Golf House Pinehurst down here is basically the second home for the offices and the museums.
that's great.
Yeah, so
Great.
that it was kind of happenstance. I had always thought, I always viewed the USGA Green Section as kind of the pinnacle, especially with agronomists,
Right.
with turf grass agronomy. And I was like, boy, I hold them in such high regard that when the opportunity was posted and it fit exactly my skill set, I was like, I have to try. I have to take a shot at this. And it was a natural. Todd Bonnell was also instrumental, not instrumental, but he really motivated me. He may not know it, but kind of just watching him go to work at Brightview and how he went about things. It was kind of the logical next step. And boy, it was I couldn't be happier here.
So when you were active as a superintendent in the turf business, and you looked at the USGA, back in those days, it was certainly the green section was very much about agronomic consulting, and that began to evolve kind of before you got there and has evolved a lot since. Can you describe kind of how the green section has been evolving and kind of where everybody wants it to go?
That is a great question, and I'll try to give you in a nutshell here a 2-minute history of the green section. So, green section founded in 1920. We're 105 years old. Uh, Piper and Oakley, the founding fathers, basically turf scientists with the USDA and other universities there. Kind of as golf got going in the United States, my boss George Wooders, I'll kind of go through our organization when I finish this 2-minute synopsis of the history, but he had a great way to phrase it. Kind of there was no resources for golf courses trying to grow grass in the early days of golf in the U.S. and people were trying to do what they did in the motherland, and it wasn't working so great because we have different climates and soils and whatever grasses. So basically, National Golf Links, Charles McDonald, everybody was reaching out to folks trying to get information. I know Alistair McKenzie at Cypress Point was trying some things, and basically the green section was founded through the USDA as a way to help golf courses get information on how to grow grass in America. And that evolved a little bit through the years into kind of funding some research and organizing turf grass research. Then as you got into the 50s and 60s, that advisory component came in. And then the formal relationships with universities really took off, and the stimp meter was developed and tools. But it really, Pat, wasn't until the 80s that the green section took the form that we kind of know it as today, where the Davis program, which is it is called now the Turfgrass Environmental Research Program, was started, and Mike Kenna took an early role in that. And then the Turfgrass Advisory Service, which is now the Course Consulting Service, was started in its full way we know it today. And then Championship Agronomy really took a formal position. We had always kind of advised championship directors on how to prepare the course.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of evolved now into how we operate today. And the best way to describe it is sort of look at the green section is one department within the USGA rules, championships, handicapping. There's a lot of things the USGA does that people don't even realize. Like all of the golf handicap index, that's inside USGA operations.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do all of that, the world handicap, the rules of golf, and collab with the RNA. The green section is one of those departments. Within the green section, we have the course consulting service, which is probably what I, as an outsider, really associated with the green section. Is what most people think of when they think of the green section, our agronomists. And boy, there's been some legends through the years. I got to know a lot of them in the Northeast, Gorowski, and the names don't end there. So that's one of the main functions, course consulting service, which is headed up by Dr. Jordan Booth. He does a great job with that. We have agronomists around the country, West, Central, and East region, and they travel to hundreds, if not thousands, of courses per year. So they see a lot of turf, and they got a lot of great expertise all around the country. And those guys also help out with championship agronomy. That's kind of another bucket in the green section. So course consulting, championship agronomy. Darren Bavard heads up championship agronomy, 15 USGA championships every year. People know about the opens, but there's 15 of them, and each one needs at least one agronomist. So because of my background, I help out Darren with a couple per year. And it's really one of the highlights of my year is getting back out. And
I bet which two did you do this year?
Well, I was scheduled to do the women's AM, which I have my flag from Southern Hills back there when Rianne Maliksi won. But I had a third baby.
Oh, that's a little more of a priority.
She came the week before the women's AM, so Darren gave me a pass. And but I did the amateur 4-ball, which was at Echo Lake in Plainfield in New Jersey.
Chris Carson.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Chris Carson. And his predecessor is there now, and he's doing a great job. And one of the other things that kind of ties into with the course consulting is also the the turfgrass research program, which is headed up by Cole Thompson. And that's kind of the third component of the green section, which has been around formally for a little over 40 years. Mike Kenna was really early lead on that, and then Dr. Cole Thompson took over the reins for Dr. Kenna. And on Cole's team is Dr. Matteo Serena and Dr. Daniel O'Brien, who just joined, and they form our research team. So those are basically the main buckets. And then my job, real quick, I know this, I went way past my 2-minute
Great.
wrap up, but I work on the green section education team. We're 4 people. Brandy Merrick. Well, our leader is George Wooders, came from golf course architecture and really one of the smartest people I know. I mean, nobody thinks on their feet like George, and he's our editor in chief and does a great job. Then we have Brandy Merrick, who was in golf course maintenance for a long time in Omni Grove Park, Pinehurst, and got a graduate degree from NC State and joined us. And then our multimedia specialist, Sean Dodge, who does our podcast and videos. So that's kind of our formal teams. And the leader of the green section is Dr. Matt Pringle. A lot of smart people, a lot of great things going on. And then there's a whole nother tools department, which I think, to finally answer your question, Pat, is kind of where we've evolved to. And through the GS3 Smart Ball, which is our new device to measure smoothness and trueness on putting greens, as well as speed and firmness. You put in a drop fixture, measures firmness. That's kind of the next chapter kind of that we moved into in the green section, but it's kind of run through its own sub department here within the green section. And that's head up by Scott Mingay and Wes Stewart and Bert and a bunch of other very smart people here. So that's sort of everything we're dabbling in here. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the green section that beyond course consulting and our agronomists that I think it's important to take that time here and just tell the listeners about.
Well, yeah, and I think that's when I look at this evolution, and the first USGA Green Section Committee I went to was in 1988, and Jim Watson from the Toro Company was leading that committee back then, and that was just when they were beginning to look at environmental research and trying to answer some of the questions that people were beginning to ask about our practices and how we did things. But it was fascinating because at that point there was still very much the focus on the agronomic consulting, and it was all the way along. It was about supporting the superintendent within clubs, and it wasn't exactly positioned that way, but that's really what it came down to. Was you called Stan Zontek because you were in trouble and you needed Stan to come speak to your leadership at the club because they didn't understand and you couldn't make them understand, and that was a really, really important function. But I think as we evolved, we had more independent consultants, we had smarter people in the industry world selling stuff, and we had better educated superintendents who were capable of telling their own story sometimes. So that's the way I saw the evolution. But now, when I think about the green section, I really do think about education first and foremost. I think the For the Golfer video series is one of the best things that's ever been done in this industry, and an underutilized tool, but as well as the electronic version of the green section record, and everything that you and George and your team are doing is great. It's really great to see it. Talk about what your average day is like as you're trying to create content, you're trying to meet some of these educational needs, and you're trying to tell the story of golf in the green section to America and the rest of the world. What's an average day like for you?
Yeah, and I glossed over the agronomist there, but boy, there's been some legends. Dan Zontek, we still use his articles.
Yeah.
And Dave Otis. I mean, you could go down the list. These old agronomists that we all looked up to when we were getting started in the industry. Yeah. So it's really a treat to be on the other side now. But yeah, so a typical day, and green section record. It started right after the green section founded. So that was 1921. We started a green section bulletin, and it's gone through a couple of different iterations of the name. But it's the green section record. Is published twice a month. We do not do a printed version now. It's all digital. So you can go online, green section record. It's easy to subscribe. We don't send you any other emails. We don't solicit things. There's no ads in the green section record. And to your point, I think I think you hit the nail on the head, Pat. That's kind of how our, uh, maybe you could be our spokesperson, but
Careful for what you wish.
we, I see as well our mission now is being communicators and packaging the information from our research program, from all the things our agronomists see, whether it's at championships or in their course consulting travels, uh, internship program, all of the great new initiatives in the green section, like the Greenkeeper Apprenticeship Program,
Mhm.
the 15, 30, 45 water playbook, which is our big $15 million water initiative, and just getting all this information into the hands of practitioners. And I mean, as a superintendent, you are just overwhelmed sometimes between social media and his emails and all the amount of information and the sensory overload sometimes. So and George Wooders again does a great job of finding those things that are most important to golf course superintendents and just packaging it and trying to do videos, trying to do content that's more short form and just getting that information as efficiently as possible into the hands of superintendents and other people in the industry that can use it. And a typical day for me, we're editing record articles, we're getting video scripts ready, tracking down podcast guests like the elusive Pat Jones. we're getting in touch with PIs at research programs. I'm talking to Dr. Lenauer. I'm talking to Jim Murphy. I'm talking to Sean Askew and looking for good research articles. So within the Green Section education team, my main role, George Wooders is the editor-in-chief of the record. My main role is mostly with curating the research content. So everything, we try to focus on USGA funded research because why not? And we have right of first refusal on all of USGA funded research. So I work pretty closely with Dr. Cole Thompson and Daniel O'Brien to find interesting things that are relevant to superintendents, whether it's a better grass cultivar that just came out, a new practice for aeration. We've done some good ones this year on goosegrass. We've done some good ones on soil moisture sensors, just trying to marry what's going on. And we benefit from Cole and his foresight in the research program, finding those topics already. So when we're going through Cole's research programs that are wrapped up, and we usually need to wait for them to publish in a peer-reviewed journal. So he's already kind of filtered his program to really good stuff that matters to superintendents. Mm-hmm. So that makes my job easier because I'm going in to look at the best of the best from Cole's research program. And we fund $1.5 million a year in research. We're the largest funder outside of the U.S. government in turfgrass research in America. And 70 something projects, I think, are currently being funded. And he adds 10, 12, something like that per year. And he's got a whole bunch of, just like all of us, there's the water playbook, there's in-house research that he helps organize. And I mean, Cole, he's just extremely intelligent individual, and the way he can design experiments. And if I have something in mind, I always one of the first people I go to with Dr. Jordan Booth and kind of, what do you think about this before I even get started? So it's kind of like the what would Cole and Jordan do test. Like before I get started on a project, I like to go see what George, Jordan, and Cole and Matt Pringle think about it. So it's so many smart people in the green section kind of pulling me up all the time. And the other things at the podcast, I find guests for the podcast and produce and edit that with Sean Dodge, who does a fantastic job on it.
I'm going to stop you right now and encourage everybody who hasn't seen it to go out and find the Paul Latshaw Sr. podcast, because I've known that gentleman for a lot of decades, and it was remarkable. You did a great job of sort of bringing him out, and it was good to see him healthy and so in charge of the facts. And who else have you had a chance to interview that you really enjoyed and you thought had great things to say?
Well, we appreciate that. That's one of our top podcasts, and Paul B gets all the credit for arranging that. He got Mr. Latshaw out there and Darren Bavard. I mean, there's so many great comments came in about that, and hopefully things will progress. There's some discussion about getting him into certain places where we feel like he belongs. I think a lot of people know what we're talking about. So
yes, please do. I've had that conversation with your boss's boss.
Yeah.
So, every time I see him, I'm like, you got to do this.
Everybody who feels like there should be a superintendent in the Golf Hall of
For
Fame,
sure.
it's everyone is well aware of that, agrees with that, and things are hopefully progressing in that direction. So yeah, boy, I really enjoyed Royal Melbourne. That
Yeah.
was a fantastic one. Um, Dan Mearsman was just,
Yeah.
boy, talk about a superintendent that is just really on the cutting edge of things between autonomous mowers and I think he's like the chief project officer or something. He's
He has a very different title. So he's sort of in charge of strategic planning and thinking for Philly Cricket.
Philly Cricket.
And
Yes,
his dad also just a tremendous guy, and his little brother quite the character and an amazing golf course superintendent too. So the whole Mearsman family,
that's right. Yeah, third generation, I think, the superintendent or something
probably.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. And Jeff Markow at Cypress Point, that was a
Yeah.
great one. Boy,
Yeah.
that was just shut up and listen type of podcast. But yeah, Rich's Forsyth and Royal Melbourne. And then I love doing the staff ones. They don't. That's something that I keep trying to push. They're not the best performing, but they're the most interesting ones. Just catching up with our agronomists out there in their travels, and of course, anytime we talk to a turf professor, Rock Kaswa is always great. He likes to call himself like a turf generalist, so he's someone you can go to with pretty much anything. But we've had so many great guests. It's hard to and not fair really to pick a favorite. But the Wimbledon one was really good.
Yes. Neil's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Neil Stubley. Uh, he you know if you can make it over there, he's got a invitation for turf folks. So if you're in London, man, and don't take him up on that offer, you're crazy. That place is unbelievable.
It's pretty spectacular. Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing is to drop in on one of the Premier League soccer clubs and see what they
Yeah.
do, because it used to be that way back when the British Isles were the place where all turf knowledge came from, and it migrated to the United States. But for a long time, it was work being done here that was migrating back to the UK, and now it's back to the UK becoming very, very much a leader in the science behind growing turf grass, because those soccer fields are perfect and they have to be perfect. And I think it's going to be interesting to see 2026 with FIFA in the United States and all of the stadiums that are changing over to natural grass, how people respond to that. I think it's good. I think it's going to be good for turf. I think it's going to be a good thing. So when you when you one of the things that impresses me most is trying to answer the questions that golfers have about turf and about superintendents and about golf courses, and trying to figure out, okay, what are those key questions and how do we answer them, and creating videos around them. What are some of the videos that are kind of the most downloaded or most listened to in the For the Golfer series, or other videos that you guys have done? Because they're amazing tools.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the videos earlier. I didn't get to that in my earlier response, but I think that scored me some points in my job interview, Pat, because I mentioned that at my green committee meetings or my general golf meetings, we'd have like 100 people in a room when we opened it up to any golf member. But I would see the people start looking at the phones. Folks, I want to take a break. We're going to do aeration coming up in a couple of weeks, and this great video from the USGA Green Section on how aeration is going to impact the course. And let's take a minute and grab a coffee and watch this 3-minute video. It was so great. Freshen up the room. All right, now let's get back to the budget, finish up that discussion or whatever, why I'm spending so much money and the irrigation doesn't work, whatever. So I use them as a golf course superintendent.
Sure.
I use the USGA Green Section videos. They're great. We put a lot of effort into producing them. The on-camera person is usually a very expert USGA agronomist in whatever they're talking about. And that's something that George Wooders and our team put a lot of effort into picking that topic, going back and looking at successful topics and refreshing them to make sure that those most popular videos, we always have updated versions of them. So some of the most popular, of course, aeration, always a popular topic. A lot of our stuff, George has done a great job of finding like topics that golfers really care about. So we go beyond just the agronomic side to divots, proper ball mark repair technique, why courses aerate, why courses spray, how watering is done, how seasonal changes affect golf course. We have a new video that Brandy's the on-camera person for about how, people always say fall golf is the best golf. Like, why? So we just did a video explaining the different agronomic reasons why the course conditions change going into the fall and why a lot of people perceive that as being better, and then why conditions are different in the summer. So
Yeah.
those are usually our most popular videos, something that's, you know, hot button topics. Uh, so just kind
Well,
of,
they're problem solvers.
yeah,
You know, superintendents, and I actually wrote an article about this for the record. Superintendents oftentimes aren't as good at communicators as they want to be, and it's hard, and you're sometimes automatically perceived as having an agenda. So maybe some of the leaders in the golf membership may be like, oh, you can't believe what he says. He's got an agenda. But you can certainly believe what the United States Golf Association has. So it's using that credibility and that information and that knowledge and that expertise to support the superintendent. But it's not that different than the old consulting service. It's just being done in a different way.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's a big reason our course consulting service still continues to have success, because the superintendent's saying it over and over again. But someone like Brian Whitlark or Elliot Dowling, who's been to thousands and thousands of golf courses all over the world and
Yeah.
worked U.S. Opens, they can come to a golf course and all of a sudden you have an agronomist that's 20 years of experience, worked U.S. Opens, Women's Open. Like when they say it, okay, you know what? Now usually the course leadership decision makers will put a little more value in that, even though they're just backing up what the superintendent may have been saying all along. Sometimes, you know, agronomists are not afraid to go in and kind of give you your medicine and be like, you know what,
Yeah, right.
you're making some mistakes. And a lot of superintendents look for that. They don't want an agronomist come in and tell them great work, you know, things
Yeah.
look good.
What's the point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And
Yeah.
that continues on. And that also applies to what we do on the education team with Green Section Record. It's kind of just getting that agronomist knowledge into the hands. And again, like when I'm showing a video to my members, my golfers, and it's USGA Green Section, there's a little bit of credibility to that. Instead of me just up here talking about why we need to aerate the greens.
Yeah.
Greens are the best they've been all year. It's September 10th, and you're going to go and ruin them. Well, this is why we have to do it. And it's a better way to more effectively communicate the reasons we do things. And that's a great place to start, Pat. USGA Green Section Record, Google it, everything will come up. But if
Yep.
you go to the left side of the page, everything's sorted nice and neatly, thanks to Sean, with videos, research, if you're more into whatever you're into. And you can click and see all of our videos and find a topic. And that's a great way to start. It's how I started uh, using the great resources from the Green Section. And I got to tell you, it's been like a 4-year education
I
working
bet.
for I feel like I got another 4-year degree in Green Section agronomy. Because if I went back today to be a golf course superintendent, I would use everything that I've learned here and I would be much better at my job. And I would be using a lot different tools and resources to get my information and make decisions on the golf course. I was not, I was very inefficient as a superintendent. I've learned after being here with the Green Section for 4 years, and I've gotten to see how the best do it. So that always helps.
It does, but this is an industry that's always welcomed that. You know, I've told people for years, if you want to find out how the best folks do it, call them up and ask them. We're a very small community, and it's a fraternity and a sorority now, and everybody is always happy to help. And so I do think that I do encourage folks to make that step and to call Bob Farron at Pinehurst or call the retired legend who is Matt Schaefer or any of those folks that you hear about, because they'll gladly help you.
Yeah, I
And
call your podcast with Matt Shaver. That was great.
oh, good. I'm glad you like that one. Yeah, it's
I like
pretty,
his style.
pretty hard
Yeah,
to go wrong with Matt.
a legend.
But it is. I mean, that's just the way it's always been. And the other thing that you learn is those folks are good communicators. Often they're natural born communicators, and they're just very, very good at it. So that I think that's a takeaway. And again, the article that I wrote for you guys, one of the articles that I wrote for you was very much about, okay, how do you become that person who can tell your own story, right? To your members, to your colleagues, to your team. How do you do that? So that's what I associate the Green Section with, is that knowledge base and that expertise to help people who have got gaps in their ability to become today's superintendent. And I think y'all should be very proud of where things are at and how it's going. What do you hope to be able to continue to convince America's golfers about? What are the topics that are top of mind for you as we move forward in the next decade or so? What are you going to focus on from an education standpoint?
Well, I think labor continues to be a big issue and finding that next generation of talented superintendents. As I travel around and I see we have the Greenkeeper Apprenticeship Program, the interns, I helped Dr. Jordan Booth with the internship program, kind of organizing that and finding them and getting them set up. And boy, I am optimistic as ever about the future of golf course maintenance because whether it's the people wanting to go into turf research or the folks that want to be superintendents, there are so many great young people out there. And I, I I've just been so impressed by the folks I meet um, out there in my travels that are working at places like Southern Hills or even Echo Lake and even smaller municipal clubs. There are so many great. The future looks bright for turf maintenance, and I'm optimistic about that. So labor, of course, is something we continue to write about and talk about. Superintendent leadership, how the superintendent role is evolving, and how these things we talked about, like leadership, communication, are becoming more important than the agronomy. Everybody went to Penn State, had the famous first day of class with the pie chart, and there's your agronomy is about 1% of your job. And that rings true for a lot of folks. I think some of the weather we've been having, agronomy is more important. But
It's that cycle we're in right now. Yeah, it's been an awful year, but that also makes the communication stuff even more important.
yeah, those soft skills. I think golf public relations, the perception that the public has of golf. I've been dabbling in the regulatory stuff with Dr. Gannon at NC State, and there's a lot going on the regulatory side and just how general public perceives golf, especially with housing things in California. There's water issues, so that's something I think is going to keep. Water was a huge deal 5 years ago. We had a couple wet winters, and nobody talks about it. But
Right.
this is all cyclical. That's coming back, and
Yeah,
resources like
and
our playbook, and
the water issue is not going to go
it's
away.
not going away.
Water is the defining issue for the future of golf. And it may not be the availability of water, it may be the cost of water. It may be how communities decide to price water based on how they feel about golf. If they think that golf is some sort of elitist sport for rich people and they use a bunch of resources unnecessarily, that's one thing. If they believe that golf courses are green spaces that help communities with wildlife and they offer places for recreation and relaxation and mental health, we win.
Yeah, and I think autonomous technology is another one. There's going
Yeah.
to be a day where most golf course turf at most golf courses is mowed autonomously. That's coming. I mean, you can go online and buy a humanoid robot right now that'll do
Yeah.
your laundry. So it's only a matter of time before this stuff enters the golf world. And that technology, data collection, that's all something I think is going aspect of golf maintenance that's going to continue to
Yeah.
grow. But yeah, those are kind of topics. And one of the things we do a good job here at the Green Section is adapting and evolving. The Green Section as it was in 1980, 1970, 60s just couldn't exist, doesn't exist. And we've always adapted and evolved. We play a much bigger role in the championships now.
Mhm.
If you talk to championship directors, Darren Bavard always mentions that the Green Section agronomist is the most important person at the championship, in their opinion, because the weather is usually the X factor at all championships. So we've always evolved. The tools department, I think there's 10. I want to say there's almost 10, maybe more than 10 people that, if not full time or part time, involved in our technology tools. We have our new USGA moisture meter, the Deacon platform. So we have a whole team that's just running that department,
Yeah.
technology. So we're growing. We're well over 30 people now in the Green Section, and we have the full support of the USGA as an organization. And I also want to mention, I know we're getting ready to wrap up here soon, Pat, but all of anything that comes in from tools or course consulting, one thing I think it's important for superintendents and people in the industry to know is we're not for profit. That's all invested right back into the Green
Yeah.
Section. Like you can only take out so much money out of the organization per year for tax rules, whatever. So everything, all this stuff that tools or whatever, that all that money is reinvested right back into things that are going to help the superintendents and the industry at large improve and grow and help us serve the industry.
We could do an entire another discussion about the GS3 and the implications of data. And I actually done a webinar on that that's floating around out there somewhere. But yeah, it's just amazing to see what's going on. And again, how that evolution of the green section has been a big part of it. So final thought, what do you want everybody to know about what you and your colleagues do every day and why it's important to the turf professionals in this business?
I think you can sum it up by saying like we really care about what we do. That's one of the things I was most impressed about. There's nobody here where it's punching the clock at all. Like everybody here is so smart and very dedicated to what they do, and they love it. Like I absolutely love my job. I don't think it's a job. Like it's a Friday afternoon. I'm here at the office, and I'm having a great time talking to Pat Jones. Like I get to go to amazing golf courses. I get to experience amazing things. And there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of editing. There's a lot of staring at the screens, figuring out how the best way to communicate this great research that Dr. Cole Thompson and all the great hundreds of turf researchers across the country have done, how to best communicate that to superintendents, find good images to attract people to the article, formulate the figures and tables in the right way. But boy, that's just mixed in with all this other great stuff that we get to do. And I pull in the parking lot across from course number 2 every day and talk
Right.
talk to John Jeffries. But I would like people to know, I would like your listeners to know that there's a few dozen very smart, very talented, very dedicated people at the green section that really truly care about golf course maintenance and making sure our industry is successful going into the future, and sharing all of this, the work we do with people in the industry and golf course superintendents. Like I always feel like I'm being pulled up, whether it's, I mean, we have 5 or 6 PhDs in the department and so many smart people. Our data scientist, Wes Stewart, is absolutely unbelievable. The Cole's team, I mean, we just have so many great people here. And like I said, one of the first things I do is think about, okay, before I make a decision, what would these people do? And that's always a great guiding light for me, is thinking in their shoes, because everyone here is so good at their job and so dedicated.
Yeah, that's the final word right there. That's perfect. Thank you so much for your time and for giving us the insights, because I don't think that most folks in our side of the industry still don't quite understand how many resources are being offered to them. So it's kind of up to each of the listeners here. Go take a look at the website. It's amazing. There's so much stuff there, and you can thank John Petrovsky for saying that. So John, thank you on behalf of everybody, and good luck to you as you continue your journey.
Thank you, Pat. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And it's a record Friday, so check your inboxes for our latest green section record.
There you go. Well, we'll try to release this one on Friday so that happens. So
You got
thank you very much, and thanks as always to our friends at the Aquatrolls Company for making this possible. Have a great day. Cheers.
Take care, Pat.